let's talk about the situation in the other regions, not just the so-called Imperial Manila, ika nga. We have Herbie Gomez, our Mindanao correspondent, and Ryan Macasero, our Cebu reporter. So, Herbie, dyan muna sa Mindanao, kumusta ba? Any promises that President Duterte has fulfilled and not fulfilled? Is Mindanao very contented with Duterte's leadership? Herbie? Okay, so wala. Is Herbie here?
Let me just point out that during the 2016 SONA of President Duterte, let me quote what he said. His first word, his first sentence, his first paragraph was this: allow me, quote, allow me a little bit of informality at the outset. You would realize that the three guys in the elevated portion of Congress are from Mindanao. Wala talaga kaming masabi. Now, it was a message of, it was a promise for Mindanao that after several decades, for the first time, we have a president coming from Mindanao. It was never done before. Now, 5 years later, we have a speaker who is from Marinduque. And the Senate president is, although he has roots coming from Cebu, but basically he's a Manila guy. So here you can see something happened along the way. He seemed to have forgotten his promise for Mindanao. I can cite several broken promises. Number one is the railway, the Mindanao Railway. He promised that during the campaign when he was going in a listening tour around the country. And during his the first months of his presidency, he promised Mindanao a railway. That's a promise that was made 85 years ago during the time of President Quezon. Okay, and it was revived in the 90s during the time of Pinoy, of President Aquino. They actually established an office, a railway office in Cagayan de Oro City, where I am based. So, and then Duterte kept on promising that during his campaign and during his the first months of his candidacy. Another would be the promise of federalism. A lot of people in Mindanao were banking on that. One of them was Senator Aquilino Pimentel. This man breathed federalism. It was in his blood. It was an advocacy that he had even before the EDSA revolution of 1986. And Duterte used that as a listening tool when he was supposedly consulting people around the country about whether or not he would run for president. In 2018, he created the consultative committee and appointed Nene Pimentel. And there was another federalism advocate at the time, I remember, Ruben Canoy, former mayor of Cagayan de Oro. After 1 year, he abandoned that. So these things are, I think, shows that something happened along the midway, or even before that. something happened. It could be that he surrounded himself with people from Manila or military guys, and he was thinking that uh, all the problems in this country can be solved through the military approach. And even now, during this pandemic, we're seeing military guys or former generals in the front lines instead of doctors, instead of scientists. Now, where is science now? So I don't. I hope that in his last year as president, that he would realize that he could still change a lot of things.
Now, Herbie, you mentioned about federalism, no? But I want to know, based on your observations, do you think President Duterte really understood federalism, or did he want federalism, or did President Duterte just use it because ito yung gusto ng mga probinsya?
I think he took that for a ride because there was a clamor for, clamor for independence, and a lot of people in the provinces in Mindanao, maybe in the Visayas, and maybe in the provinces of Luzon were sick and tired of the Manila-centric governance. It's all in Manila. And for the first time, here is a Promdi, a provinciano, who promises to give change, to change things, how the system works. So I think he took that for a ride. And now I'm really doubting if he really meant that.
Pero at the same time, Herbie, no, experts were saying na, well, on the economic side of federalism naman, the economic team was said earlier, I think it was way back in 2018, no, when federalism was floated, they said it would wreak havoc on the economy. Talagang it would be disadvantageous to those that are, the poorer provinces. Kasi because of federalism. So bakit help us understand bakit gusto ng mga probinsya ito despite the economic repercussions?
Gusto ng mga taga-probinsya yan, like for example the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, because they don't want they want the least control from Imperial Manila. Okay, they wanted more powers. They want to. They know what's happening in their own backyard. They want to decide. Okay, they don't want Manila guys, people from Manila, telling them what to do. So it's popular. It became popular. The idea became popular, and I don't think. Okay, if Duterte, if Duterte really meant that, if he's really an advocate of federalism, he won't drop it like a hot potato in 2009. But beginning in 2009, he stopped talking about it. After saying na he's given up on the idea, and then during his 2019 SONA, he didn't mention federalism. Okay, so there's really a big question on whether Duterte is really an full-fledged advocate of federalism. On the economy, well, I'm aware of that a lot of people are saying that it would be disadvantageous, but it's either he's a federalist or not. It looks to me that he was never. He was just after of winning the presidency.
Okay, so I want to ask naman Ryan. Ryan, ano mga promises ba ni President Duterte para sa Visayas? And meron ba mga natupad dito?
Mhm. I don't think that President Duterte was as ambitious and specific in promising projects to the Visayas, like the railway project, for example, or things like that. But there were things that were on the table that did excite people. Like, the Visayas is a group of islands, and one of the projects that didn't push through was the bridges connecting all of the islands from Luzon to Mindanao, which excited some people because, to make transportation easier. So that did not push through. And I know our colleague Aika Ray wrote a story on the, constantly evolving build program. But I think it was more, it was more the issues that he promised to address, like the drug war, for example, was an issue that many Cebuanos and Bisaya people found it was important to address, that none of the other candidates in 2016 were addressing. Pursuing the peace process, for example, Samar province, Leyte, and Negros Island have been, hotspots for armed conflict for decades. And like Mindanao, many people in the Visayas were expecting regional development through federalism to happen. And of course, that didn't happen. And of course, land reform as well. In 2019, a farmers group, Task Force Mapalad, gave Duterte an F for having the lowest land distribution since 1988 under any regime. And he did not, I believe he did not deliver on any of these except for the drug war, perhaps. But I think we have to remember that he promised to completely eliminate drugs and not just reduce it. He was not specific, of his targets. It wasn't a certain percentage per year. It was he wanted to eliminate drugs in 3 to 6 months, and that clearly didn't happen. But we have still a lot of drugs on the streets, and the drug lords that he named and shamed and said he was going to go after, most of them have not been arrested. Peter Lim is still on the loose. There have been some mayor LGU heads who have been, targeted and killed. Mayor Jed Mabilog is accused of Iloilo City, was an accused drug protector mayor who fled the Philippines after Duterte publicly accused him of being a drug protector. And Mayor Espinosa in Leyte also was killed in jail, and his son was arrested. So there was some, there were some that were, killed or arrested, but not as many as I think that he had promised.
Okay, with the many failed promises and various issues on human rights, is the Visayas still supportive of Duterte? I mean, the numbers seem like it. So, with all these issues, why? I mean, that's another complicated question to answer, right? Pero bakit?
I think so. Jail answered it well earlier. That when Duterte apologizes, it's usually coupled with an excuse. That he underestimated the drug problem, and that he didn't know at the time, even though he was so confident and he was strong in his conviction that he could do it, that he didn't know that the drug problem was that big. And his supporters. His supporters believe it for the most part. And so I think that's why. And of course, the Duterte administration and his allies are very proactive on pushing propaganda on social media. So they have a very effective propaganda machine that helps, I think, boost their numbers up. And also in the media as well. You go to these communities, and the drug war is not something that would automatically turn them off, even if they have seen killings in their communities. It has more to do with the economy, if they're able to eat, and other gut issues like that. And they don't necessarily hold Duterte completely responsible for all of their problems.
Okay, thanks so much, Herbie and Ryan.